evening. Welcome again and good afternoon. My name is Blaise Itabelo and I'm the National Community Engagement and Partnerships Manager here at CRSA. Thank you again for joining us for this national introduction to CRISP as a permanent program. I will start with an acknowledgement of traditional owners of our wonderful country. Can get that slide up, that would be good, please. Thank you. All right. As you will soon see on your screen, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which our team lives and works and recognizes the continuing connection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to country. I'm joining today from the south side of Brisbane on the land of the Turrbal and Yagara people. I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. We also recognize that conversations about settlement in Australia sits within a deeper history, including the displacement and continuing impact experienced by First Nations people. Today is an important moment for CRSA and for the broader community sponsorship movement in Australia. This is not just an update, it is a moment to recognize the journey from pilot to permanent program delivery, to acknowledge the communities, the partners who have helped make this possible, and to invite more people, organizations, and local elders, local leaders into the next chapter of welcome. CRSA began with a simple but powerful idea that everyday people working together in local communities can play a meaningful role in welcoming refugees and supporting settlement. Through the pilot, community supporter groups, newcomers, partners, local leaders, and many more people have shown that this model can work in Australia. Today, we will celebrate that achievement, share outcomes of the pilot, introduce the CRISP program as a permanent program, and most importantly, explain how you can be part of what comes next. A few quick housekeeping points before we begin. This session is being held as a national online briefing and is being recorded. We will not be using breakout rooms today, but we will invite you to participate through the chat. A short poll and a form will be shared at the end. We will encourage all of us to keep our microphone muted unless you are invited to speak. If you have any questions, we will use the chat box to ask questions. And the CRSA team who are here with us today will help monitor those questions and we will answer them at the end of the session. We'll now begin with a short video reflecting on the journey from pilot to program. It's coming up. Technology always does something. There we go.
Never.
Thank you. Thank you, team. That video just gives us a small glimpse of what community sponsorship has meant in practice. People meeting people, communities stepping forward, and welcome becoming something practical, local, and deeply human. It is now my great pleasure to invite CRSA CEO Lisa Button to speak about what this means for CRSA, for us, for the communities, and for this movement in Australia. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Blaise, and hi, everyone. It's so great to see some familiar faces, but also some new faces as well. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that I'm coming from the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present and any Indigenous people with us today. I'm sorry that video is a little bit glitchy. It's just one of these issues that's playing videos through the internet. The images and the music don't always line up as much as you'd like, but it is available on our website if anyone wants to look at it in a higher quality way. Look, I just wanted to really share a brief history of this work, and I know some of you will be deeply familiar with this, and for others, I hope it sort of helps to put this moment in context. Essentially, our organisation and the start of this movement began back in 2017 with a partnership between a number of non-profit organisations, including the Refugee Council, who are here with us today, Amnesty International, Save the Children Australia, Welcoming Australia, the Australian Churches Refugee Task Force, and Rural Australians for Refugees. And all of those organisations had this shared interest in how we could harness the power of everyday Australians to expand and improve refugee settlement, and indeed protect what we have built over so many decades in Australia as a proud and compassionate country when it comes to resettling refugees. In 2020, our organisation started putting this idea into practice. Having started as an advocacy organisation, we became a program organisation as well through the Group Mentor program, and that program essentially was launched in the midst of COVID, and connected groups of Australians with refugees who had arrived before the borders had closed. But then it continued in 2021 with the fall of Kabul, and played a big role in supporting many families and individuals arriving from Afghanistan at that time. And that work really demonstrated that there was both a willingness and a capacity for everyday Australians to play this role, and led to us having an opportunity in 2022 to partner with the federal government in the co-design of what is now the CRSP as a permanent program. So since that time, a bit over 4 years ago, we've been working closely in partnership with the Department of Home Affairs, as well as with thousands of Australians and refugee newcomers and supporting community organisations to show that this really could work at a pilot level. And thankfully, last year, we secured a commitment, we collectively secured a commitment from the government for the CRSP to continue as a permanent program, backed by some very favourable findings from the University of Queensland, which my colleague Romy is going to share with us today. I'll just wait for that person to be muted. Thank you.
Yes.
And yes, just as from 1 July, that commitment to making the program permanent became real, with the CRSP, the P in CRSP now moving from pilot to P for program. So very grateful to the federal government for the opportunity for our organisation to continue working in partnership and delivering this program around the country, but also immensely grateful to all of you who've been involved, and very welcoming to those of you who haven't been involved. Perhaps today is the first time you're hearing about this work, and you might be considering how you got involved. And I also just want to extend my gratitude to newcomers like Julian, who we'll be hearing from today, and who are featured, different newcomers featured in some of our stories and videos, for trusting both our organisation and the Australian community with their stories and their challenges and their aspirations, and for sharing their stories, which are so important to inspiring more and more Australians to get involved. Throughout my time doing this work, my understanding of the power and potential of this model has really grown and deepened. And while we've always seen that it has enormous potential to expand refugee pathways by harnessing the power of, private individuals, I also think at this moment in time, we need to think about the power that it has to protect the opportunities that we already have through greater community awareness and buy-in. And I note that early on in this work, when I'd go to meetings with people around Australia, if you asked a random group of people, what does Australia do for refugees? Most of them would be able to tell you about our approach to asylum seekers who arrive by boat. And that is, obviously a feature of the way Australia has done things, and we all have concerns about those approaches. But what I discovered was that a lot of people didn't know about our humanitarian program, the fact that year on year, Australia does resettle thousands of refugees, nor did they necessarily know about the services and the skills required to maintain that work. And now through this approach, hundreds of local communities involved and thousands of Australians and countless new connections being made, that work is becoming more and more visible to the general Australian community. And I think that is enormously important to ensuring that Australia continues to uphold its role in the global system of resettling refugees well into the future. We need Australians to have skin in the game, to see it as something that they own and something that they're a part of. And to tell their own stories of why they think it's important that we continue to do this as a compassionate nation. The CRSP as a program is incredibly important in its own right, and often described as life-changing for those who participate directly. For those of you who saw the Australian Story episode earlier this month, featuring Naima and Faisal and the Hope for Eden group here in Melbourne, you would have got a taste. For those of you who are already involved, hopefully you saw some of your own experiences reflected in that episode. And if you haven't seen it, I'd really encourage you to watch it. It really does highlight the power of this model. But I also want to say that the CRSP is really only one manifestation of this concept of community sponsorship. It's a matched sponsorship program in that people who put up their hands to do the welcoming are matched with refugees referred through the UNHCR and government. But there are also other forms of community sponsorship that our organisation is in the process of envisaging and enlivening in partnership with other organisations and the Australian community. One of those is a refugee student pathway that we're partnering with Skill Path Australia and the Australian tertiary sector in bringing into life. And we've had our first cohort of students already arrive through that pathway. We are also working with Talent Beyond Boundaries to bring the power of community into a skilled labour pathway for refugees. And a shout out to any and all of you involved in those programs, including, I think we've got some people from Darwin who've joined today. Really grateful for your participation in those other emerging pathways. And the other aspect of our work that for which CRSP has proved foundational is the vision that we have for named sponsorship. The idea of the Australian community sponsoring people known to them or who meet the criteria set by them, whether that be through an identity, through a family connection, through a friendship connection, or an affiliation of interest. And finally, sponsorship, community sponsorship in the context of humanitarian crises. These are themes and ideas that we're working on in partnership with the Refugee Council and many others. And I do also just want to acknowledge the philanthropic supporters who are here today supporting that work, as well as who gave us our start in life as an organisation. This is difficult work, particularly at this moment politically and geopolitically, but it is so important. And we know that the real power and potential of this approach comes from the engagement of members of the Australian public and the grassroots networks that you all belong to. So I just want to really underscore how much we appreciate your interest and involvement in this work, how much we hope that you will continue to be committed to the cause, despite the headwinds that we might feel we're up against at this moment in time. And really just encourage you to help us build this movement through whatever means and networks you have at your disposal. I'll hand back to you, Blaise.
Thank you, Lisa. What a wonderful reflection from P to P, from pilot to permanent. Again, an important reminder that the CRSP program is not actually being built from nothing. It is being built on years of practical work, community generosity, learning, advocacy, partnership, and local leadership. We now want to bring in an external, not really external, a cousin reflection on the significance of this moment. I'm really pleased to invite Adama Kamara, who is the co-chief executive officer from Refugee Council of Australia, to offer a few words on what the move to a permanent community sponsorship program means from their perspective. Over to you, Adama.
Yeah, good afternoon. I should say cousin Blaise, since we're cousins, our organisations are cousins. I'm really pleased to join you all this afternoon. As most of you know, that Australia recently welcomed its 1 millionth refugee since World War II. And we know that that's not just a number, it actually represents 1 million people who've rebuilt their lives here in Australia and contributed through work, business, communities and cultures. Australia has a long history of settlement and how we welcome people. The role the regular community members play in welcoming people has evolved over time. If I can go back in time, Australia actually had a thriving community sponsorship program that was established in 1979, and that was known as the Community Refugee Settlement Scheme. And so throughout the 80s, local volunteer groups, churches, service clubs, local residents welcomed thousands of refugees, helping them find housing, jobs, and settle into daily life. However, in the late 90s, settlement support became more formalised with paid staff and specialist organisations. And but as an unintended consequence was that the formal role of everyday community members was reduced. So at the Refugee Council, we saw that while specialised services were essential, the shift meant that regular Australians didn't necessarily have contact with refugees. And we knew that that was a vital gap. Those personal connections that build empathy and strong relationships and support are actually quite important for people to resettle or build lives here in Australia. So in 2010, when we were developing our submission to the humanitarian program, we called for a return to community involvement. We argued that the government service delivery needed to be complemented by everyday citizens who could offer social capital, local knowledge, and friendship. So in that submission, we looked closely at international models, most notably Canada's model, which was world leading in private. It has a world leading private sponsorship program. And we saw that the true genius of the Canadian model wasn't just in the numbers, it was the social license it created. When local communities, footy clubs, and neighbours directly welcome a family, refugee protection stops being an abstract political concept. It becomes a human relationship. So in our submission, we put forward recommendations for a Canadian-style sponsorship model here in Australia. And while there was initial resistance from some in the sector who were worried about moving away from a professionalised service delivery model, we continued to press the case. First, it was with Minister Chris Bowen through the expert panel on asylum seekers, where advocates pushed to expand the intake through community-led avenues. And it wasn't a seamless path to where we are now today. There was early attempts by the Gillard government to do what they called at the time community proposal pilot. And then there were later iterations under Minister Dutton, didn't quite hit the mark. They were costly, heavily reliant on employer visas, and critically, they were not additional to Australia's baseline humanitarian intake. So we knew we needed a community-first model. And in 2017, we joined forces with other organisations who felt the same way. Yeah. So Lisa has mentioned them previously. Amnesty International, Save the Children, Rural Australian for Refugees, Welcoming Australia, and the National Council for Churches to form a coalition that became the Community Refugee Sponsorship Initiative. And we're very pleased to auspice the initiative, which has now become an independent organisation, CRSA. The persistent advocacy of organisations similar to RCOA doing this work has culminated in the CRIS pilot. And the significance of CRIS becoming a permanent fixture, I think, is something we should all, everyone on this call, everyone involved should be celebrating. It's a shift from a temporary program to a permanent program is actually a significant milestone. And one of the reasons why it's a significant milestone, if you look at the current social and political climate, we live in a time where public discourse around migration, refugees can be so polarising and fragmenting. However, the Community Refugee Sponsorship Program provides an alternate answer and response. We know that when a group of residents comes together to mentor a family, help them settle into a community, offer friendship, it brings everyday Australians a tangible, practical way to express compassion, and it turns towns into sanctuary communities and strangers into lifelong friends. So as we look beyond our 1 millionth refugee milestone, the future of Australian resettlement must be one where government can action and community passion work hand in hand. So from the Refugee Council of Australia, we're very proud of the role we've played in supporting this vision over the past 15 years. And we're really, really thrilled to see CRSA thriving today. To everyone who's joined this call, who's been part of this program, or who want, thank you for your support. And you're showing Australia what independent advocacy, what community solidarity, and what true welcome look like in practice. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Adama, for those remarks and for recognizing the role that community sponsorship has and the importance of this movement in the current social and political climate. We will now move into the main program explanation. We know some of us have joined today. You probably already know the CRISP well. Others may be newer to the program. This next section is to give everybody a clear and practical overview of the CRSP as a permanent program, what it is, what has changed, what is staying the same, and how communities and stakeholders can participate. Having said that, it's a great honor for me to introduce and welcome my colleague Romy Vitalian, who is the CRSP Program Director, to take us through the CRSP as a permanent program. Over to you, Romy.
Thanks, Blaise, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. We've got some slides coming up. It does feel a little odd to explain how the CRSP works when I look at who's in the room. There is a community here who've helped to bring it about and who have lived and breathed the CRSP around your own kitchen tables and on your own main streets of your communities. So please excuse me for introducing some of the key concepts for the people who might be hearing about CRSP for the first time. The next slide, please, just has the key features of the CRSP and how it works. So the CRSP remains a sponsor, a stranger program for UNHCR referred refugees who don't have family or friends in Australia. So they remain the prime eligibility requirements for refugee households that they're selected by the Department of Home Affairs to participate in the CRSP. Settlement support is provided by groups of 5 or more everyday Australians. And our role at CRSA is to mobilise the goodwill that exists all around the country, take groups through a basic screening and training process, undertake a personalised matching endeavour with each group and each refugee household, and then provide support to the groups and the refugee newcomers throughout the 12 months. The HSP or settlement casework remains available as a safety net for refugee newcomers of the CRSP. The next slide has an end-to-end process, which again won't be new to those of you who've undertaken it, and there's people in the room who've welcomed multiple families to the CRSP. So what will continue is that the UNHCR and the Department of Home Affairs will identify refugee participants for CRSP while we continue our efforts to mobilise groups around Australia. And we've started looking over the last few months around where groups have engaged from around Australia and comparing it to the population share in each state. So we're able to see which states are really well represented in CRSP by population share and which are less. So we're starting to use that to guide our mobilisation efforts into the permanent program. That matching process that happens has really been enhanced throughout the pilot period in response to feedback received from many of you. There was no piece of feedback throughout this pilot that was not mulled over and talked through internally. So we are really trying to make that matching process as informed as possible by groups and newcomers, including opt-out provisions for groups in regional areas that might be newer to refugee settlement. Underneath all of it, throughout the 12 months, is our team providing an additional layer of support, the wealth of government funded services that exist for refugees, and that safety net is remaining into the permanent program if complexity emerges. The next slide, we've got some of the key achievements in the pilot. One more. So almost 1,000 refugee newcomers were involved in the pilot program, and this is due to each group that stepped forward. So over 950 refugee newcomers were matched through the pilot, and over 1,670 Australian community members engaged in community supporter groups. We know around each group there's layers and layers of support, so we anticipate the number is much higher than that. We hear that in Canada, 1 in 3 Canadians have either welcomed or know someone who has welcomed, so we've got really big goals to see that number grow, but we know at any one time the number of formal members is only really one piece of it. We've had arrivals into all states and territories, and about 40% of groups are in regional Australia, and 22 refugee newcomer countries of origin, just showing all the learnings about the world and people that the Australian community has been exposed to throughout the pilot. The next slide shows where groups are based. So Northern Territory, we've got at the bottom, we've got 3 groups there, all the way up to Victoria. We're very close to 100 individual groups in Victoria. This is partly about where groups are cropping up and you know, inspiring people around them. We find that one of the biggest ways to mobilise groups is people coming into contact with people already involved and seeing and feeling it. An interesting observation has just been the wealth of professional skills that groups are bringing into the program. So 45% of group members have worked in either education, healthcare, or social sciences. So by no means is this an unskilled program. To the contrary, there's so many relevant skills and then so many other professions and disciplines being brought into it. The University of Queensland did undertake a very comprehensive evaluation during the CRIS pilot, and thank you to each of you that participated in that. We know that many of you in the thick of supporting refugee households were engaged in quite long surveys and phone calls with the university, but that process was really key for us getting this program to permanence. So there is about 120 pages of evaluation data on the Department of Home Affairs website for anyone who wants to read it in detail. Some high-level findings were that the vast majority of refugee participants felt welcome in their new communities, quite a significantly higher rate of people engaging in English classes, staying with that English learning journey throughout the 12 months. So it seemed that CRIS was providing a real incentive for people to prioritise learning English. We saw more than double the number of people engaging in paid employment in their first year compared to traditional settlement programs. The next slide is about the outcomes for the group members themselves, who largely found the experience to be rewarding, and 76% of groups felt that they had made friends with the household they had welcomed, which is by no means assumed, but wonderful to see. I wanted to just make a note. I can see a few of you here from regional Australia, and while CRIS is not specifically a regional program, it's working magic, we think, in regional areas. So we're seeing that the newcomers reported finding it easier to make friends with people outside their own cultural communities in regional Australia, and actually almost 4 times the employment rates in regional Australia than in major cities, which is at odds with from what we're hearing from a lot of refugee participants pre-arrival are saying they want to go to the cities where they can work. So this was really interesting to see that regional Australia is providing fantastic outcomes for people to engage in employment. I think there's one more piece to this slide, which is about the experience of groups in regional Australia. We're aware that many of you in regional Australia are doing a lot beyond the support of the family in terms of upskilling your local community and community service organisations. So it was interesting to see that groups in regional Australia on the whole seemed to find the experience more enjoyable and less challenging than their metropolitan counterparts, and that's something we're trying to understand. I can see Rosie laughing. Rosie from Colac. So that's something we're trying to sort of understand what that phenomenon is. Thank you. Not too much more from me. I think there's maybe another slide. This was just about the ripple effects that we've been seeing throughout the Australian community. I think when we undertook this endeavour, we really thought that there would be benefits for the refugee newcomers, and we thought the experience would be rewarding for group members. But I think what we hadn't fully anticipated was the impact we were seeing beyond the groups and beyond the newcomers on whole communities. So we've heard these quotes on the screen are for people in a few regional communities that welcomed CRIS newcomers, not from the members themselves. So people who just came into contact with a CRIS group or a CRIS refugee household, and that experience helped them feel more connected to their own local community. So this is something we're focusing on more and more, is the impact on Australia as a whole beyond the formal program participants. I'm going to, I would just want to finish by, actually, what's changing? I think that's probably why a lot of you are here, and this is going to be a bit of an anticlimax because not much. We really tried to make enhancements throughout the pilot. We started it really not wanting to bank up a whole lot of things that were wrong with it to fix at the end. So we were trying to fix things incrementally as we went. So there's really not a whole lot of change. We expect the program will look and feel the same to the Australian community. We have an allocation now of 200 visas per year. So that's individual visas, individual people. Our organisation has some enhanced reporting requirements, as you'd expect in a permanent program. So that's just in terms of our reporting requirements to the department, but we don't think that will be felt much by the community. The only real change that we've seen, and for some of you who are repeat groups, is an expectation that the settlement plan is adapted for each specific household you welcome. So that's a minor addition for groups, but we don't expect there'll be big changes otherwise. I'm going to hand back to Blaise now so that we can hear from program participants themselves. I want to thank everyone for helping to bring permanence about from this pilot. Over to you, Blaise.
Thank you, Romy. That overview is very important because it actually reminds us that the CRSP is a continuation in the new chapter. It continues the core spirit of the CRSP, which is usually local groups, organized, local people organized in the groups and providing practical and relational welcome. But it also gives us a stronger foundation to grow the movement, learn from what has worked, and bring more communities into this work. We now want to move from the program explanation to community voice, because the strongest case for community sponsorship is not made only through policy or processes. It is made through people, newcomers, supporters, local organizations, and community leaders, and so many people who have seen what welcomes look like in practice. This next segment, we call it Community Relay. Each speaker will offer a short reflection from their perspective. We've asked each one of them to keep their remarks a little bit brief so that we get a chance to hear from each one of them. And now we'll introduce our first speaker. But just before I do that, one of the lessons from CRSA's engagement work has been that trusted intermediaries matter. They help extend the reach of the movement by opening doors to communities, networks, and local relations that strengthen awareness, trust, and participation. Our first welcome relay speaker is Naomi Chua, who is CEO of Embrace Sanctuary Australia, one of the trusted community partners helping extend the reach of community sponsorship by connecting the movement with local networks, relationships, and communities where welcome can take root. Over to you, Naomi.
Unmute me. Oh, there. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Blaise. It's really wonderful to be here today. I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri land. Embrace Sanctuary Australia is committed to nurturing compassionate communities of welcome. So you can hear how beautifully aligned we are with everything that the CRSP program does and CRSA in general. So Embrace Sanctuary is all about getting out into local communities and helping them to find what matches with their skills and resources and passions, and how they can match those to making refugees feel welcome and a part of their communities. So we've got a couple of ways that we do this. We go into schools, and education is a really big part of what we do because, as Lisa mentioned, the political climate now is one where we want people to be able to hear firsthand the stories of refugees themselves so that they can make up their own minds about the impact of refugees in our country. And that's been a really powerful way to raise up a whole new generation of people passionate about Australia continuing to be a country of welcome for those that really need it. We also run programs where we bring people together from all sorts of different backgrounds to come together and just meet one another, hear one another's stories, share meals together. And then in the midst of all that sits the CRSA program, which has just been a really beautiful complement to our work. It provides, as others have said, a really practical and tangible way for local community members to get involved and to get to meet refugees and be a part of their lives and to learn from one another, to walk alongside one another. So we've helped start 12 CRSP groups with another 5 in the pipeline at the moment. And it's just been exciting to see how that ripple effect has taken place. So many of those CRSP groups, other people in their local community get to see it in action and see not only the impact on the newcomer family, but the impact on their local community of having that group of people come together and welcome others. So it's been really beautiful to see that build, and that whole movement of welcome has just been continuing to grow. So we're really committed to continuing to find ways for everyday community members to come into contact with newcomers and to be able to share their lives and stories and learn from each other's wisdom. And the CRSA program is just a wonderful way to enable that to happen. So my encouragement for anybody on this call today that hasn't dipped their toes into the CRSA program is to have a go. There are challenges, but far above the challenges, everybody has come back and said it's been such a rich and rewarding experience for them and for those in their broader communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Again, another great reminder that this can only work when different parts of our communities are finding their role in this program. One of the things that I always say is that there is a role for everyone, whether you're business, whether you are representing a faith organization, any civil society group, there is a role for you in this movement, and you can do it. Let me introduce our next speaker, someone that every conversation I've ever had with them has always been positive. And Naomi did mention there are challenges, but it's probably really good to hear it from Phil. Phil has done this several times. Phil is part of Home in Victoria Community Supporter Group. Thank you for joining us, Phil, and I will hand over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Phil Kennedy, and I'm from the Happy Home Community Supporter Group in Melbourne. We want to help refugee families settle in Melbourne. And so 2 years ago, we welcomed an Iranian family of 6, originally from Afghanistan. And we helped the family establish a solid foundation for their new lives. Opening bank accounts, finding a home to rent, English classes, schools, finding a local GP, driving lessons. And this last year, we've supported a Syrian family of 7, and that family of 7 is soon going to be a family of 8. So they are, it's lovely to have that second family. There are challenges. But there are also laughs along the way. And one of the aspects I really like about the program is it gives you the opportunity to provide guidance or mentoring to a family. And I was in another session similar to this, and I had a young refugee fellow, Ali, from family that we helped at the session. He's 24. And I was saying to the group, look, my children don't listen to me, but one thing that's great about this program is that Ali actually listens. Well, then Ali followed up. It was his turn to speak, and he said, my father has 8 siblings, and they're all married, so I've got lots of aunts and uncles. On mum's side, she's got 7 siblings, so more aunts and uncles. I'm thinking, where's he going with this? And so he says, I have a lot of aunts and uncles and my parents, and they will all tell you one thing, and then that is that Ali never listens to anyone. But Phil, sometimes I will listen to you. So I think he was letting me down gently. But along the way, we've learnt lots of different things. And one of the things we've learnt is that our role is to help connect the family to services, often professional or other services, rather than for the group to do it. So it's not up to you to do everything. So, for example, there are services that provide free driving lessons, or in some cases, we use the group's funds to pay for lessons. And when you consider that teaching someone to drive is quite involved, and in the fact that they may not speak your language, it's much better to get someone else to do it than to attempt it yourself. So we've had 5 members from the 2 families that have got their driving licence. So anyone thinking about joining this program or joining a group, it's right to recognise that these families have experienced significant disadvantage, whether it's in health, in education, or in general from being displaced. But the counter side to that is it's so wonderful when you see the family getting established and you've helped them to build a new life. So from anyone considering getting involved, I think for me and for many of our group, this has simply been one of the most rewarding experiences of our lives. So do it.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you so very much. And it's always good to hear from you, the positivity you bring to it. Well, let's keep moving. I wish I could ask you questions and we get to chat a little bit, but of course, our time is not helping us today. I will now invite our next speaker.
After like 1 year and 4 months now in living here in Australia. With my groups as well, like I have a lot of memories with them, to be honest. I remember the first time I saw them in the airport, and all of them, you know, they are really have big eyes with teary eyes and big smile, and they waiting for me. When I saw these faces, with I knew it. That's my people. I'm really safe. I will be so loved here. I feel like really they delivered an instant warming feeling in my heart right away. The first time I saw their faces, and I feel like I realized it's not just a people who volunteering. No, it's beyond that. It's like a family who greeting a new her son, you know, their son, sorry, and they are wanting to just hug him to tell him you are right, you'll be here, you will be safe here. And the feeling of, you know, when you are traveling to a new country and you carrying on a lot of weight, or you are anxious, afraid, you feel like I know it. I'm not alone. They had my back. Chris, the program, the Rimbu Refugee Perth is my group, which I call them my Aussie family because they are not a group anymore for me. It's like they are really family for me. And we create a lot of memories. Another unforgettable memory, it was when they threw me a birthday party, and it was big, beautiful party with all the people came, the friends of a friends. They just came to say, Julian, you are so welcome here. We love you as you are, and we are looking forward to see you are just flying freely in your safe country. I take all this love in my heart, all this still, I still connect with them. I still meet them every time. It's not just like a program. It's not just like a group. It's just more than this. And to be honest, like Chris, I want to really thank you so much, and my group in Refugee Perth about to give me unconditional support and love, care. They helped me to carry all this new life in a new country, which it's different culture, different things for me. They helped me a lot to carry on with laughter, care, support, make my feet on the ground steady really well, to tell me now you can do whatever you want. You can. I'm trying now to achieve a new bright future for me. And to be honest, it's like I know I belong here. I feel like really I belong to Chris. I belong to my group, Rimbu Refugee Perth, and I want to say a really big thank for everyone that work in the Chris, everyone who volunteering to be in the groups, and the new groups who thinking to create a new groups to welcome a newcomer. I will tell you that really important that what you do, there's no words. No words can capture what you do. It's how it's really precious and how it's really amazing what you do. You volunteering not just by creating a group. You volunteering your time. your mornings, evening, nights, weekends. You volunteer your mentality as well. Yourself, you put all yourself to help a stranger that you don't know yet, but you believe he needs it, and you know what you do is heart to heart, not just like the papers you do and then you do like your job. It's heart to heart, and because of you, Chris, all the groups, the world will be a better place, because what you do, it's make souls connected and make people find the safe new life that actually they maybe missed somehow in their countries, and you make them to have a new families, new friends, a new love that actually they missed a lot. Thank you for all your moments. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for as like a newcomer for me. I really every day at morning I woke up at morning, I looked at the sky, and I said, I am here, I can breathe, and I am safe. And thank you for Australia. All small soul in Australia, every tree, every human being. Thank you for welcoming me here and give me a new safe life to start to build my new future. Thank you so much. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julian. I wish we were in the same room so we can actually give you a big applause. You said it all, and we really appreciate the words you said. And I think I've said this probably hundreds of times for many refugees coming in this country. The whole journey actually brings two types of feelings that are very conflicting. One is excitement. Finally, you've got freedom, you've got safety, you can achieve your dreams. But at the same time, that is when you're thinking that you're leaving behind everybody you know, everything you know. You're starting from fresh. The anxiety of starting a new life in a new land, surrounded by people you don't know and you can't speak the language, and just getting at the airport, meeting people that you don't know that are willing to embrace you and welcome you. It's just one of the best feeling any one of us can ever experience when you're starting a new life in a new community. And thank you for just sharing. I'm reminded to keep moving. I just want us to create a little bit of an experience here. I will be inviting us to familiarize ourselves with our chat functions on our devices, whether we're using a mobile phone, a computer. There's a small exercise we want to create. We want to create a national welcome map. So this is it's just a small exercise. It will take a very short period of time. What we would like you to share is first your location, second an organization or a community you are connected to, and third, in one word, what is one word that describes the kind of welcome you want to help build? As you are here today, after you heard all of this, where are you? You know, your location. An example for me, I'm in Logan. I'm a local community member. And really, what I would like to help build is belonging. So if we can use the chat box, we spend the next few minutes, think through everything you've heard in this section, your location. If you represent an organization, you can do that. And we also have a Slido in there that you can use to answer that question. So the Slido link is in the comment section. Please feel free to use that to respond to that question. Three words. There we go. We're seeing a few words coming in. That's really good to see there. Thank you, everybody who is doing this and who are still doing it. Pretty good. Melbourne, it's really hard to avoid Melbourne. There's always Melbourne, overly represented, as always. I love you guys. Let's see, give it another minute or two. Yay, Sydney's coming in. Oh, Melbourne is back again. Good. Yep. Oh, thank you for sharing. That's really looking good there. Oh, friendship connection. Awesome. Yep, looks like friendship and connection is really taking over there. Hope. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm inclined toward moving on, and thank you so very much for everybody who have shared. This is very important for us to see, where people are joining us from, where follow-up may be needed, or what are people thinking about. All right, let's keep going. And I've got a long 20-minute script to read, and I'm just kidding, we're almost at the end. But I just want to make a quick call to action before we can move into answering questions that we've received, and also get to hear a closing remark from Lisa. Every day I'm reminded actually to share about this. The success of this next chapter that we're starting today, the CRSP being permanent, really depend on what people, organizations choose to do after hearing now we're permanent, to come publicly and announce it's permanent. CRSA, we can provide the framework, we provide the training, we provide the support, resources, and coordination, but the movement itself grows through local leadership, trusted relationships, and practical actions. So our invitation today is really simple. Help us bring one more person, one more organizations, and one more place into this movement. There are several ways you can do this. If you are an individual, you may consider forming or joining a community supporter group. If this is your first time, you've never been part of it. If you're interested in being part of a community supporter group, there are different ways groups begins. Some groups start in their neighborhood. People talk to their friends and communities. If you are part of a current or former CSTs, you might consider whether your group is ready to support again, mentor another group, speak at a local event, introduce CRSA to people in your local area who may be interested. You will see a poll there, and I will touch base on that in a minute. If you represent an organization, any club, any government institution, local councils, you can help by promoting CRSP through your network. Sometimes the most valuable role an organization can play is simply to open the door and help CRSA speak to the right people. If you're a strong local networks or public voice in your community, you might consider becoming an intermediary. These are people that help share the message, host conversations, identify opportunities, and bring others into the movement. If you're connected to a stakeholder we should speak with, please introduce us. And if you're able to host the next event in your local community, a lunch, briefing, just a casual catch up, we'll be more than happy to come along. Now, what you're seeing on your screen, this is not it's not a formal commitment we're asking you to do. The purpose of this is to ask for you to simply indicate one practical action you could do after this session. Help CRSA understand what follow-up may be useful. You might be interested in sharing information, in sharing information with your networks, starting a local conversation. Just think about, what is one practical thing I can do after today? We're not asking you to commit officially now. We just want to see things that are possible in the community. So feel free to use the box there, tick a couple of areas. Tick a couple areas and click submit. We will collect all of that. And remember, names are not recorded. After this, we move into questions and answer, and then we will hear closing remarks from our CEO, Lisa Barton. Just give it one more minute, and we will move next to questions and answer. And I know some people have been writing their questions in the chat. We'll try to go back and respond to those questions that have not been responded to. Otherwise, we'll give people an opportunity to raise their hands, and we can allow you to unmute. Yeah, we're seeing more comment in the chat box today. That's pretty good. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, encourage a friend. And this is actually one of the most powerful way we believe. It's very easy for someone to do this if they've heard of it from someone they know, because you will share your own experiences, your own journey in a way that someone like me may not be able to share. So yes, please, thank you. That's probably good there. I'm happy for us to now move on with questions and answers. I'm not sure if we can leave this on for another minute while we're picking up questions. I will probably get Romy, Lisa, I get you, Naomi, and Phil. I'm not sure if Julian is still around. Happy for you not to, either way. And yeah, we'll try to answer all the questions that we are receiving.
I'm not sure, Blaise, if you just want me to jump in, but
yes, please.
There's a question about the 200 visas. Is it more or less than what CRSA would have wanted? Match sponsorship around the world is inherently difficult to scale beyond the hundreds. My understanding is that CRSP at 200 visas a year is actually, believe it or not, the largest program of its type in the world. And that's because, you're asking good people like many of you, to do quite a heavy lift for people who you don't know and you don't get to select. So in situations where community sponsorship really scales into those sorts of numbers that we hear out of Canada, for example, into the thousands and tens of thousands every year, it's usually by introducing the capacity for communities to name who they wish to sponsor or to have some role in the selection of who they wish to sponsor. And I'm sure for any of you involved in the CRSP, one of the first things that happens when you welcome a newcomer is they ask, how can you help me help someone else I know? So what do the 200 visas, that was a determination made by government. I can't comment on all the different factors that they took into account at coming at that number. At its high point, the CRSP had supported up to about 300 arrivals in any given year. So, I think the 200 represents what feels like for government and for CRSA to be an achievable goal in the current climate. I think if we were able to demonstrate to government that we had a lot more community interest than is required to support 200 arrivals, government really likes this model, and there's a lot of upsides in it. So I don't think it would be too difficult to grow it beyond that. But that also needs to be balanced against what we hear from community, which is a desire to achieve additionality at some point in time for these numbers to grow the humanitarian intake. So that's a rather long answer to a short question, but we're very keen to make a success out of the permanent program at that level, and also use it as an opportunity to build out those other models of sponsorship that I referred to earlier on. We're using CRSP knowledge and infrastructure to support refugee pathways, and those are going to be increasing in refugee student pathways. Those will definitely be increasing in numbers. We're using, that foundational model to support employment pathways for refugees. That has the capacity to scale, and we're also driving that advocacy around named sponsorship, which at some point there will be a window. I'm answering two questions at once now, but I think someone asked about the status of that work. Our strategy is to do the work, have the blueprint ready, and when the political window opens, which it inevitably will, history tells us, it will open at some point, we'll be ready with a good fit-for-purpose program to go. And of course, we'll be trying to open that window politically as well. But, your guess is as good as mine as to when we'll be in an environment where government is prepared to both grow the program and introduce a new model for named sponsorship. The current model is well known to not be working for named sponsorship. It's been suspended for new applications, but to what extent government will be prepared to really overhaul that program is something that is yet to be seen.
Thank you, Lisa, for covering those questions. I've got a question from Marita here in the chat box. Did CRSA receive adequate funding for supporting CRISP at this scale?
That's a great question. There's two answers to that, yes and no. Yes, we're comfortable with the funding levels in terms of performing our core functions. What I would say about community sponsorship is there is no end to the amount of work that could be done to improve both our services as an organisation, as well as making it easier for communities to get involved. Our team is constantly juggling priorities around how we invest our time and energy. Do we invest our time and energy in trying to take this program into new communities that haven't yet been involved? Do we invest our time and energy into helping groups solve the housing challenge being involved in community sponsorship? Do we improve? Do we invest more in storytelling? Do we invest more in financial support for groups so that they don't have to fundraise as much? So there's so much more that we could do, and we do rely on philanthropy to help us with some of those things from time to time, as well as help us with core funding for those other programs that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Looks like we don't have any other question that I can see here, but if we've missed your questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we will take that. It looks like we've done a great job explaining everything. Well done, Lisa, Romy, Phil, Naomi, and Julian and Adama for the reflections, presentations. Yep, we've got one hand up here. Yes, Bridget.
Bridget, if you're having trouble with your mute.
No, sorry, I was trying to give an applause, but I raised my hand by accident, so sorry about that. I don't have a question.
We thank you. Well, look, if we don't have any other question, just before we close, I'd like to invite Lisa back for a final reflection and a word of thanks. Over to you, Lisa.
Look, I don't have a lot more to say. I think Naomi, Julian, Phil, Adama, and other members of the team have really said it all. I did find myself a little bit teary listening to Julian share his reflections. It's wonderful to hear how the program lands in community and with newcomers, and I think it gives us all that extra inspiration to keep going and keep doing the best we can to build this model. So just to reiterate once again, thank you so much for your interest. Thank you so much for your involvement. It's hard work, it's courageous work. And I just encourage you to continue to think creatively about how you can engage people and organisations around you so that we can make this thing as big and beautiful and wonderful as we can.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you again, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. Have a very wonderful afternoon, and yeah, keep in touch. And thank you for coming again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.